Good morning, students. It is Friday the 13th. Scary. Okay. That means today is the last day of this week. That means you have one more week before the Thanksgiving break. And a lot of us know we all need a break, right? So let's get started. I'm going to review in this video sexual and asexual reproduction. I'm going to cover all the highlights, all the important information, because today in your folder, you do have a quiz. This quiz is going to count as a daily grade. It's not going to count as a major quiz grade like the others have in the past. You can watch this video while you take the quiz. You can watch this video before you take the quiz. What I'm going to do is record a video, and then I'm going to explain how I'm going to grade your quiz and the opportunities you are going to have if you pass the quiz in the first try. All right. So here we go. I'm going to go ahead and start my notes and follow along. Here we go. So we are going to cover asexual and sexual reproduction. The reason why I'm doing this is because you will be tested on the STAR test next year while you're an eighth grader. The TEAG 714b compare the results of uniform and diverse offspring from sexual and asexual reproduction. There will be at least one question on that test dealing with asexual reproduction, okay, or sexual reproduction. You have heard of this before because in sixth grade, you were also introduced to mode of reproduction in the TEAG that wanted you to identify basic organisms. You've heard the words sexual and asexual reproduction before. These are not new this year. You learned those last year when you were little sixth graders. Okay, so now we're a year older and we're learning a little bit more information about it. All right, so a couple of key vocabulary words that we are going to highlight today is going to be number one, uniform. Uniform means that everybody is the same. Okay, everybody looks exactly the same. Diverse, right here, and I'm going to go with a different pin since it's a different word. Diverse means everybody looks different. Okay, and this is a good thing. Differ, and I spelled that wrong. That's okay. Different. Sexual reproduction. This means that you are going to have two organisms that have to mate for reproduction. And then asexual means you are going to have one organism for reproduction. All right, and that's bothering me over here. So let me cross that out and spell it correctly. Different. There we go. Different. All right, so moving on, we are going to look at sexual reproduction first. Okay, reason why we're going to look at it because it is the one that produces the different offsprings and there's more information. So first off, this is a type of reproduction which genetic material, we already know what that genetic material is, right? So it's three letters, DNA, that genetic material from two different cells combine producing offspring. So those two different cells are these right here. They combine, these are the egg and the sperm. First off, sex cells are also called, okay, in case you see this on the quiz, gametes. All right, they mean the same thing, sex cells or gametes. So the first is the egg, and we all know that the egg comes from the female. The egg looks just like a regular cell that we covered in the first unit this year. All right, and then the sperm looks like a little tadpole looking thing, okay, with a tail, right? That's what a sperm looks like. The main understanding of both of these is that the egg is going to carry 50% of that DNA, and the sperm is going to carry the other 50% of that DNA. And if you add these two together, you get an organism that has 100% of that DNA. Okay, so that is the whole idea of combining sex cells and why it happens. Okay, there is no way that two eggs can merge together. There's no way two sperm can merge together. It has to be one and one. Okay, so moving on, that word where those two join together is called fertilization. Fertilization should be your key buzzword in understanding that, hey, sexual reproduction, that word fertilization, there it is. Okay, when those cells combine together, they produce a new cell, and we call that a zygote. It's no longer sperm and egg, it's now a zygote, okay? So advantages of sexual reproduction, there's quite a few, okay? One of the main ones is you get diversity. Okay, diversity means that there's a bunch of different things. There's a same type, like we're all human beings, right? But I don't look like you. You don't look like me. I don't look like your mom, your dad, your brother, your sister, your aunt, your uncle, your grandpa, grandma. Sorry. Everybody's different. And because of sexual reproduction is why we all look different. All right? Because we get half of our DNA from mom and the other half from dad. The other reason why sexual reproduction is good is because that variation, that diversity that we get allows us to survive in these different environments. Okay, plants are able to resist disease. Animals like us are able to resist disease, resist weather, resist all these other changes that happen in our environment. We are able to withstand all of those and live and reproduce. Okay. The best thing about sexual reproduction is the traits that get passed on are going to be the traits that are the strongest and allow us to live. Okay. So that's something you need to think about. The other advantage that we're going to talk about in the next unit is called selective breeding. This is where you can combine specific traits of organisms to create something that you want. So, like, for example, I have a picture in the background. Here is a zebra. Here is a donkey. They made a zonkey. I'm not making that up. That's a real animal. Okay, this is a zonkey. There are some bad things about combining two different species of animals. We'll talk about those, but this gives you a good idea of what selective breeding really looks like. Yeah, if you have a dog or a cat, that's an example of selective breeding. All dogs evolved from the gray wolf. Right? That was its original ancestor, its descendant. They all descended. Even the little itty bitty chihuahua at your house came from the gray wolf. Okay, so we'll talk about that. So that's a preview. There are some disadvantages though to sexual reproduction. It's not all good. All right, one of the disadvantages is it takes time and energy. Okay, it takes time and energy. In humans, we cannot automatically reproduce, and that's okay. We have to go through this thing right here. I'm going to write it out. We have to go through puberty, right? We learned about in the endocrine system that those cells, those cells in our body do not activate until the endocrine system is ready to activate, right? That pituitary gland inside of our brain, right, tells all of the other all the other glands, say, hey, it's time to work. Okay, so we have to wait until puberty happens. All right, taking a look at something else. Oops, let me get to my pointer. Here we go. Looking at something else. You have to go search and find a mate. Okay, for some organisms like the little pygmy sloth, they have to swim great distances because they live on specific tiny islands. That there's different islands bordered by water, right? Because that's the definition of an island. It's a landmass surrounded by water. So they have to go from one island to the next. They have to swim across the ocean, okay, and get to the next island to find a mate. What if something like a predator were to swim by? Okay, what if something like maybe the sloth drowned, right? I know it's sad, but these are some of the harsh conditions. These are some of the extreme measures that organisms have to do to be able to reproduce. All right, so moving on to the last thing is fertilization. If an organism is pregnant, if the eggs and the sperm are fertilizing, okay, there's no way that organism can get pregnant again until they deliver their offspring. For humans, we know that's 9 months. But in some other cases, some extreme cases, there are some mammals on this planet that take up to 2 years before they give birth. So that's something to think about. Taking a look at, here are some examples of organisms that sexually reproduce. You have the dog, the snake, you have some flowers. You have the birds, you have the spiders, right? There's the wolf spider right there. And there's a tree. These are all organisms that reproduce sexually. So that was all sexual reproduction. Let's talk about asexual. So asexual reproduction requires one parent. Okay, one parent. It's not female or male. It's just one organism. Okay, there is no gender. It's one parent organism that produces offspring without fertilization. So if they want to have an offspring, they can have their own. They don't need to go anywhere. Okay. The only thing about asexual reproduction is that their offspring is going to be uniform. Everybody's going to be genetically identical. Okay. So if this hydra has 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10 tentacles off the top of its head, then its offspring are going to have the same 10. Okay. They're going to be exactly alike. They're going to be the same. Types of asexual reproduction. We talked about this back on Tuesday, where you learned, or Wednesday actually, when you learned about the different types of asexual reproduction. There was 5. I'm going to cover 4 of them. Okay. The first one, binary fission. Because we learned about cells, we're going to start off with cells. Binary fission is just when a cell splits. So bacteria cells, amoebas, they split. They copy their DNA, they get bigger, and then they pinch themselves and split in the middle. That's binary fission. It splits to form 2 new uniform identical offspring. You have budding. All right, budding is when you have an organism. We're going to start it right here. Okay, let me grab my little pin. We're going to start it right here. So here's where we start. We'll put a 1. So you have an organism. You can see the little bud right there. Then 2, that bud starts to grow. 3, you see that bud get bigger. And then 4, when that bud is old enough, it'll pop off of the parent organism and be an exact copy. It'll be a little smaller, but once it gets older, they're going to look exactly the same. Okay. Same thing going on for the hydra right down here. So this bud growing off the hydra, when it gets older, it's going to pop off and you'll have 2 hydra that look exactly the same. All right. The next one is regeneration. Our good friend Patrick Starr. My GIF shows it perfectly. All right. So here's what happens. You have this arm that is being cut off. By the way, don't go to the ocean. Don't go to the beach. Find a starfish, start cutting off the arms and watch him grow. Okay. That's just mean. Let it happen naturally. So this arm comes off and this arm regrows itself. What it's not showing is that arm that comes off will grow the other 4 arms to make a new starfish. Okay. So that is regeneration. The other thing that I want you to pay attention to, don't get it mixed up, but down here, and I'm going to put it in a box, down here, regeneration can also happen in organisms that reproduce sexually, but they don't reproduce new organisms. They reproduce body parts. So like lizards, when the lizard's tail comes off, right, it'll regrow a new lizard. That's what we're talking about. Okay, a crab, if a crab loses an arm, it'll grow a new arm. That's what I'm talking about. Even though they reproduce sexually, they can regenerate new parts, okay? But they do not reproduce asexually. This next one is plants, vegetative propagation. This is where you're going to have a plant recreate itself from parts of itself. All right. It does not need any other mate to help out. So here's a strawberry plant. That strawberry plant is sending out a runner. Okay. You can see that runner right here. When that runner touches the ground, like it did right there, you can see that roots start to sprout and start to work its way down into the soil. And then this bud is going to grow up to be the exact same copy as this guy over here. Okay, so it's going to be the same as this guy over here. Potatoes do that, right? Strawberries do that. Ivy plants. My dad is good at this, even though he doesn't take care of them after he pops the vines off. He makes these ivy plants. We have so many now. It's crazy. All right, going on to advantages. So there are some good things about the asexual reproduction. The first one is that you can reproduce without a mate. So you don't need to waste time or energy. Okay. The second thing is that you can do this a lot faster. It doesn't take 9 months like a human. In some cases, you can have yeast, right? Yeast, the stuff that's in this bread right here, can reproduce in a matter of minutes. Okay, you can go from one yeast to over 100 yeast in about 5 to 10 minutes. All of that is because of budding. Okay, so everybody looks the same too. Disadvantage. Okay, so here's some bad things about it. Yeah, it was cool that it was fast, that it can happen really quickly, but the disadvantages about it is everybody looks the same. Everybody is the same. Everybody has the same exact DNA. So that means if this person is killing these dandelions, right, that have the same DNA, that spray right here is going to work. Okay, let's say we have a bacteria. All right, let me draw a little bacteria. We have a little bacteria cell. And it makes other bacteria cells. Okay, it can survive in the same weather. All right, we're going to say 87 degrees Fahrenheit, right? It's a little hot, but it's comfortable. But what if the temperature goes down to 40, 30 degrees? Because this guy cannot, the parent, okay, this is parent, I'm a circle parent, because parent is not able to survive in 30-degree weather, parent's going to die. But because the offspring is an exact copy of the parent, offspring's going to die too. Okay? That is a disadvantage of asexual reproduction. The other thing is because of how the DNA is split and made copies, you can get dangerous mutations. All right, here are a couple of extreme examples, but here are some mutations. This isn't a rare case, but because of the process of copying DNA and splitting it up, you might not have a complete copy, or you might take some DNA from the original parent, leaving them without any. So who knows? That's the dangerous disadvantage. Examples: you have cacti. I have two pictures here. Here you have another organism, and here you have the hydra. And hydra shows the pictures 1, 2, 3, and 4. All right, so big concept. Here's the overall or overarching ideas about these guys. Number one, sexual reproduction. Let me get my little pin back. Sexual reproduction. You're going to need two organisms, a male and a female. You are going to create diverse offspring. It does take a while, and then the offspring that we create is going to be small amounts. Okay, human beings can make one offspring at a time, sometimes two, three, right? Some rare occasions. Sorry, see, Mr. Cepeda has trouble talking too. Rare occasions, you can have human organisms that produce 6, 7, 8 kids, right? But that's a whole different story. Asexual reproduction, only one. Everybody looks the same. It's a quick process, and you can produce large amounts. Okay, so here is your final slide. This is the final concept about asexual and sexual reproduction. Now let's talk about your quiz for today. When you click and open up your quiz, I'm going to see if I can do it without showing you the answers. Okay, there are only 7 questions. All right, perfect. There's only 7 questions. Questions like, what is genetics? Which statement is true? Where does a kitten get its genetic material from? Which is an inherited trait? Remember, inherited traits are things that you're born with. Okay. What is the process where an organism passes on genetic material to make a new organism? Okay. And then matching vocabulary and matching the types of asexual reproduction. So these last 2 are matching. You're going to have 5 vocabulary words, 5 definitions. Just click and drag where you think the vocabulary word belongs with the definition. The asexual reproduction, same thing. You're going to have the description of that type of asexual reproduction. Click and drag the name of that type and drop it off where you think that's describing it. Okay? If you pass, by the way, this quiz I'm giving you, let me see how many options or how many times I'm letting you take it. Number of attempts that a student can take. I'm going to give you 3 tries, taking your highest score. Because I'm able to tell how many times you can take it, here's my little bonus. If you can pass this quiz with an 80 or above, okay, 80 is the cutoff, and I'll write it on the screen. If you can pass with an 80, 80% or higher, I am going to take your lowest grade, okay? Your lowest grade, and I don't care. I'll even make your lowest grade either be a test grade because I love you guys that much, a lab grade, or a daily grade. Okay, if you can pass this quiz the first time, you can pass the first time, I will replace your lowest daily grade, okay, with a 100. Okay, with a 100. I will change your lowest grade, test grade, daily grade, lab grade. I will replace it with a 100. Okay, because I know you guys can do this the first time. I'm giving you all the resources that you need to pass this test, this quiz. Okay. Take your time. Make sure that you are doing what you need to do. If you need to write down some notes, write down some notes. But when you take this quiz, remember you already know everything. I believe in you. You've got this. You know the information. Take your time on this. Don't just click. You know the answers. Read them through and then get that 80 or above. If you get it, I will take one of these grades here, your lowest grade of these three categories. Okay, one of these three categories, one of your lowest grades, and change it to a 100 because you earned it. All right, that's it. Please join us today in class because we are going to have fun. We're going to play some games, Gimkit, Bluekit. We're going to have a good time. Please, please, please join us. You know, if it's your first time joining us, welcome. If you are a constant person who loves to join us, come on back. All right. All right. Talk to you guys later. We'll see you on Monday. Bye.